Okay, fine. I had some technical glitches in between, so that is why we had to wait. You all had to wait for some time. Now, I think everything is perfect. We will go ahead. Okay, so this is our third day in our course, and in the last class we stopped with chapter number 2, and in the last session we were talking about throughput accounting, and we had done a couple of problems also from that particular topic. Okay, now it's time for us to move to the next topic. Now before that, there are two more questions which I have given in the material. Now probably I'm not doing that for the time being. I'm keeping it pending because these questions are very much similar to whatever we have done in the previous session. So what you can do, you can try working out these problems your own, and after you have worked out these problems, I will give some time for that. And I have noted down these problems separately, and we will be doing this problem in the class itself, but not now, so that you will also get some time to give a try on those questions. Okay, so you can mark those questions as homework or whatever, and you can try doing those problems without looking at the answer. Do it independently. If you have fully understood the topic, then probably you should be able to do it. Then later on, once we get time, we will be doing that problems in the class itself. Okay, so we will do those problems, but not now. Okay, now I think we can move to the next topic in chapter number 2. Now, as far as chapter number 2 is concerned, the major areas we have already covered. Cost of quality we have covered, then throughput accounting and TA ratio, the concept. These two things we have already completed. Theory of constraints also we have done. Okay, so these three are the major topics on which our institute may test you from your exam point of view. Now you have certain other topics also. Basically, the topics which we are going to see now are those topics which you have already covered in your strategic management in your IPCC. Okay, we will be learning about business excellence model. Then after that we have something called supply chain management. Supply chain management, I think it was a very detailed topic, or basically it was a chapter itself in your strategic management, I think. Okay, but don't worry, we will do the we will explain those concepts. I will explain those concepts in the class itself. Okay, so you will be familiar with that also. Okay, so now you can write the heading business excellence model. Business excellence model. And before that, I hope the recorded versions of the last two classes, last 2 days classes were available to everyone. I had put it in the WhatsApp, the YouTube, and I had shared all the links to you all. Now, one thing which you need to keep in mind is you will be able to watch those videos only if you log into YouTube from your registered email ID. Okay, so if you try it from some other ID, you won't be able to do it. Then there was some complaints that the last session on the last day, it was not you were not able to watch it. Then today I have enabled the permission for everyone, so that if anybody had any difficulty in watching those videos, they will be able to watch it from today morning onwards. Okay, so and if you find any difficulty in watching any of these videos, then probably you can message to me. I will enable the organization, so I will give you whatever has to be done, I will do it. Okay, now these videos will be available till the end of your next exam, that is November exams. So till then you can watch, and let me tell you, these topics, these concepts, at least the concepts, it's better you can, if you can hear the recordings once again, so that the concepts will be thorough in your mind and you will be able to understand it better. Okay, when we do it in the class, there are a lot of other limitations, like you may not be able to concentrate for a long time. So in between you may miss out certain topics. So connectivity issues might come. So anything may happen in the class. Okay, but to substitute to those limitations, you can use these recorded sessions. Okay, listen it, then attend it as if you are attending in the class, then that will give you an added advantage. Okay, now we are moving to the next topic, that is business excellence model. Okay, now okay, so what is business excellence model or BE model? Now, business excellence model or BE model is a group of performance theories, performance measurement theories. And what does this theories measure? These theories measure the quality of an entity. Okay, so business excellence model is nothing but these are certain theories or certain models which are used to measure the performance of an entity with respect to achievement of quality. As you all know, in the previous chapter we were dealing about the quality. Okay, and we saw that the primary objective of any entity is nothing but to ensure maximum possible quality. Okay, with which it has to create a competitive advantage. That is the objective. Okay, so and we saw what are the methods which can be used for instilling quality in the entity. Okay, we saw about TQM, then we have seen about the cost of qualities and the optimal level at which the cost of prevention cost and appraisal cost is matching with the failure cost. Okay, so all those things we have seen. Now, having implemented all those models to achieve superior quality, how to measure whether the entity has succeeded in its objective of attaining superior quality. That part of measurement of quality or measurement of achievement of quality is what is done by this business excellence model. Now, basically in this model, we have lot of subtopics or sub-models which are used to measure the quality achievement criteria. Okay, but as far as your syllabus is concerned, we are not dealing with those entire models. You have only a gist of one particular model called EFQM excellence model, and from the exam perspective, you can't expect any application type of question from these topics. At the best, what you can expect is you may expect a short question from this particular topic, like how write short notes on EFQM model or business excellence model, or as a part of case study, they may ask you certain short notes on linking with this particular model. Okay, so for that, what you need to understand is the utility of these models. These models are used for measuring the performance of an entity with respect to achievement of quality. Is it clear? Okay. Now we will just move to the material what I have given. I will just read it. It's a philosophy for developing and strengthening the management systems and the process of an entity to improve its performance and create value for the stakeholders. Though it is explained like this, it is nothing but how to create value to the stakeholders. An entity can create value to the stakeholders by providing superior quality products or services. Okay, so this philosophy helps to measure the performance of an entity in this objective. Okay, now business excellence model seeks to develop a quality management principle that increase the overall efficiency of the operation, then minimize the waste in the production of goods and services. So, the basic objective of this business excellence model is twofold. Okay, which are they? One is increase the overall efficiency of operation. Okay, then to minimize waste, in the production of goods and services. Basically, the concept of waste and all we are going to deal in next chapter in detail. Okay, so I will be explaining what do you mean by waste and what are the methods to minimize the waste. That part we are going to see in the next lecture. Okay, so here the objective is nothing but to increase the overall efficiency of the operation and minimize the waste. Okay, now these two are the fundamental concepts to achieve superior quality. Okay, increase the efficiency and minimize the waste. Okay, now going further. Second objective would be increase employee loyalty for maintaining higher standards throughout the organization. It's not standards throughout the organization. So why employee loyalty is required? Employee loyalty is required for implementing the total quality management or any quality assurance system. Okay, an entity can implement any quality assurance system or total quality management approach with the full cooperation of the employees. Full cooperation of employees, for which it has to gain the employee loyalty. Okay, now going one step further, achieve excellence in everything the entity does. That is the third objective. Okay, then you know what is this? The company which should be able to achieve maximum performance. Maximum performance in respect of all activities it is doing. That is why it is known as excellence. Okay, achieving excellence in the business or activities which it is performing. And the last one would be collaborating various management thoughts as concepts, and thus the structure quality management, structure the quality management in a manner that can be adopted by the entity. Okay, so basically everything focuses on one particular thing, that is quality management. Okay, for managing this quality, we require all these things. We need to have a quality management principle, and this quality management principle should focus on two things. One is increasing the efficiency and minimizing the waste. Then second, for any quality management systems to be reliable, the cooperation of the employees is required. For that, you need to increase the employee loyalty. Okay, then third, the company should look for achieving excellence in whatever activity it does, and it should also collaborate various management thoughts to structure a quality management system, and it needs to be adopted by the entity. Okay, right. Now, what are the prerequisites for achieving business excellence? Okay, prerequisites for achieving business excellence. Okay, business excellence requires two prerequisites for its achievement. One, we have already seen employee involvement, then efficient and effective leadership. This is otherwise known as quality management, top management. Okay, so if you want to achieve business excellence, one criteria would be you require the employee involvement. All the employees should put in their 100% of efforts, without which no entity can reach at the excellence. Okay, so 100% efforts or cooperation from the staff of or employees. Okay, that is requisite number one. Second one, just because you have a very committed, very involved employees, that will not help the organization. That alone will not help the organization to achieve business excellence. Rather, it need what? It need an efficient and effective leadership. A leadership of a quality top management is one the other prerequisite for achieving any business excellence. Okay, because it is the management who guide the organization. So unless the top management is efficient and effective and is able to lead from the front, the entity will not reach at the excellence level. Okay. So this is a short note. Then we have there are various models in business excellence. So we need to see what are the models in business excellence. Business excellence concept. Okay. In that, the first one is EFQM excellence model. Okay. Then you have Baldrige criteria. Baldrige criteria for performance evaluation. Okay. Then you have, this is EFQM excellence model is UK based model originated in UK. Then this is obviously US based model. Then you have Singapore model. Singapore model of business excellence or Singapore business excellence model. Then you have Japan. Japan is renowned for its quality, right? Okay, so Japan Quality Award model. Then last one, Australian BE framework. Okay, so these are nothing but various performance measurement models or approaches used by various countries for measurement of quality. Measurement of quality. Okay, right. Now, in this, we are going to see only one model, that is EFQM excellence model. So you can write EFQM excellence model. What is the speciality of this particular model? Now, as I already told you, it is a model which is developed in UK based model, and the thrust on this particular model is Self-assessment of quality. Self-assessment of quality. What does it mean? It means that the entity which is responsible for implementing the quality systems or quality control system itself does its quality measurement or quality performance measurement using certain criteria. Okay, so you can write entity responsible for implementing quality system itself does a self-assessment of quality. Okay, using certain criteria. Okay, if I give you an example, let us say Tata. Tata is renowned for quality. Now, Tata has a subsidiary. Let us say Tata will take Tata Cars Limited. Okay, this company is implementing a quality control or quality assurance system with respect to the cars manufactured by it. Okay, now in case of EFQM model, this Tata Cars itself is evaluating the progress of achieving the quality with this quality control or quality assurance systems it has implemented, okay, using certain criteria. So it is a self-assessment made by the company itself. The company, which company? The company that introduced the quality assurance systems or quality control systems. Okay, that is the fundamental concept of EFQM. Now, what is this self-assessment does? Okay, what is being measured? There should be something to measure, right? Okay, so what is measured? Where do they stand in terms of quality? Okay, quality in terms of quality processes. Okay, that is what is being measured. Okay, where does Tata Cars Limited stand in comparison with others or in isolation? Okay, it could be in comparison with others, say comparing to its peer group, Toyota, Honda, etc., etc. Where does it stand? That is one aspect. Second aspect, in isolation, the other players may not be concentrated or focusing on quality. We don't know. But even then, Tata has a system and Tata wants to focus. So if others are not doing, forget about it. Where do we stand in isolation in terms of quality? That is the second aspect. So first aspect will be its position vis-a-vis the competitors or peer group. Second will be where does it stand in isolation. Okay, so the question that is trying to be answered using this self-assessment is where do they stand in terms of quality process. Okay, now how this is being evaluated? Okay, it is evaluated using certain enablers and certain results. Okay, how does EFQM evaluation done? Okay, we can write for achieving best quality, this model has identified certain enablers and expected results. What? Certain enablers. ENABLERS, enablers and expected results. Okay, this model evaluates those enablers and the results individually and the performance of the entity is measured. Okay, so basically enablers means factors which enables quality. Okay, or in other words, these are the cost quality control measures that are taken, or that factors which needs to be concentrated. Then second criteria is the results. What do you mean by results? Results means what an entity achieves using the enablers. Okay, so you have enablers and results. Then results. Okay, under enablers you can write what the entity should do, okay, to achieve quality. Then results, what the entity want to achieve by implementing quality control. Okay, right. Now quickly we will go to the enablers and the results. Okay, now enablers being evaluated. What are the enablers that are evaluated under this model? One is the leadership. Leadership is an enabler. Unless you have a proper leadership, it is not easy for an entity to achieve superior quality. Okay, so leadership is the first parameter, first enabler. Second, people. Every entity should have a proper team of people to achieve superior quality. This includes employees, okay, then or staffs and other stakeholders. Okay, then third is strategy. A well formulated strategy is very important. Without a strategy, the company cannot achieve anything. Very important. Then next is partnership and resources. What do you mean by partnership and resources? Now, in order to achieve anything, an entity needs two things. One is partnership. Partnership means what? It cannot work in isolation. It has to partner with others. It could be partnering with suppliers, okay, or other associates, okay, with which or using which the things that the entity are required to do are getting done. Okay, so that is partnership. Then resources, of course, every entity requires resources could be anything like material or input or capital, any resource that is required for the functioning of the entity will come under this particular category. Okay, now next is, okay, you can write process, then comma, products and services. Okay, it is the output that the entity give to the stakeholders. Okay, there are processes, then there are products, and there are services which an entity delivers. Okay, so these are the 5 enablers of quality. One is leadership. There should be a top quality, then efficient and effective leadership is required. Effective leadership. Then it should have committed people, which includes the employees, staffs, then other stakeholders. Then the company or the entity should have a well proven or well thought formulated strategy. Then partnership and resources. Then last, process, products and storage. So what you do in this particular EFQM model is the company will see or evaluate the quality achievement in terms of these enablers. Okay, what is the leadership quality? Okay, rank the leadership, give some ranking to the leadership. Then go to the next enabler, that is people. What is the quality of the people? Okay, how do you rank the people in terms of a scale of 1 to 10? Then strategy, you rank the strategy. Then partnership and resources, then last, process, products and stories. So all these enablers are taken one by one and you put a rank for each of this particular enablers. Okay, and you take the cumulative result. That is with respect to the enablers. Now next is results. I told you results refers to what an entity expect to achieve. Expect to achieve. Okay, so enablers was the factors which is required for achieving the results. Okay, now results are achieved using the collective work of enabling factors or enablers. Okay, then what are the things which you are verifying in this results? Okay, you can write it as RADAR, radar, RADAR. Okay, what are this? One is results, okay, required to be achieved. Required to be achieved. Then second is the approaches. Okay, approaches to be planned, developed for what? For achieving the results. Okay, then third one, deployment of approaches. How you are using this approaches to get the expected results. Then last one is assessment and refinement. Okay, so what you do is you have certain approaches, that approaches are deployed in some manner. You keep on evaluating these approaches and the way it is deployed, and you refine those, the manner in which the approaches are developed and they are deployed. Okay, so it is a continuous evaluation. Continuous evaluation of what? Of, if you mark it as this 1, 2, 3 and 4, continuous evaluation of 2 and 3 to make necessary changes. Okay, right. So ultimately EFQM model is nothing but it is a self-assessment model for measuring the quality that is achieved by an entity. Okay, in this model an entity evaluates itself to see where they stand in terms of quality, in terms of quality processes, then in comparison with its peer group as well as in its isolation. Okay, now how this quality is achieved? The quality is achieved through certain enablers. Okay, so this model, EFQM model, evaluates 5 basic enablers. They are leaders, the leadership, then people, then strategy, then partners and resources, then you have process, products and services. Okay, so these are the enablers of factors which give you the results. Okay, then they evaluate the results that it expects to achieve. Okay, what are these the results which they expect to achieve? One is results that have to be achieved, that means the end outcome. Okay, you need to be the #1 brand, quality brand in the world. That is your results or the final outcome. Then approach, how you expect to achieve that result. What are the approaches you have taken, what all approaches you have planned, developed. Okay, so that is approaches. Now deployment of approaches, once you have planned the approaches, how you have deployed those approaches to get the expected results. Then the last one would be assessment and refinement, where you continuously evaluate the approaches you are employing and the how these approaches are deployed. Okay, so which means the results will be something which is permanent objective. Okay, whereas the approaches and deployment, these are only the methods to achieve the objective. Okay, so this keeps on changing. I hope this is clear. Okay, now quickly we are moving to the next topic. You can write the heading supply chain management. Supply chain management, or shortly known as SCM. Okay, now what do you mean by supply chain management? Okay, supply chain is nothing but the entire series of activities. Okay, starting from where? Procurement of inputs, then ends with or ending with delivery of output, products or services. Okay, so it is a series of activities starting from procurement of goods. You are procuring the inputs, then you are producing, then you are delivering it to your customers. Okay, so the entire activities within this is totally known as the supply chain. Okay, the formal definition will be, this is the entire network of organizations, okay, or people working together, working together for what all things? For design, for designing, producing, then delivering, and servicing what? The products. Okay, so supply chain management is a collective term which is used to refer to the entire people, then entities, organization which are involved in the entire process of procurement of the goods, procurement of the inputs, and delivery of goods, and also the service of the goods. Okay, right. So here we are concerned about transformation of goods, that is inputs into output. Is it clear? Okay. Now, this is a holistic approach and it includes lot of activities. Okay. And these activities you can write one by one. I'm not going into very detail in these areas because you have already covered these topics in strategic management in your previous level. That is one thing. Second thing, there is nothing more value to add for me here. Okay, so I will just read out the topic so that you will get a familiarity. That's all. So activities involved in SCM. Okay. First activity is customer relationship management. Customer relationship management. Then second one, supplier relationship management. Then you have customer service management. Customer service management. Then fourth one, demand management. Demand management. Then manufacturing flow management. Manufacturing flow management. Then product development and commercialization. And commercialization. Then you have returns management. And the last one is order fulfillments. Okay, then let's see what are these things one by one. Customer relationship management. You are concerned about the management of customers. Management of customers. Okay, so you analyze the customer data throughout the entity, and the main motive of this activity is to improve relationship between relationship with customers. Okay, so you are analyzing the entire customer data, you are contacting them, you are taking steps to improve the relationship between the customer, because you recognize the customer to be one of the most valuable chain in your entire SCM network. Okay, then coming to next, supplier relationship management. Like customer is important, suppliers are also important. Okay, so here we are analyzing the supplier data to develop a robust relation between the relation with the suppliers, because you cannot take a stand that we are paying you so you have to obey our orders. No, suppliers are your strategic partners, so you have to take care of them. Okay, so you have to have a proper relationship between the supplier, then only you will get quality products, you will get products in time, you will get priority. Okay, whenever there is any issues with the or shortage in the material, etc. Okay, next is customer service management, which is nothing but after sales service. Once you have sold the goods, the customer may have a lot of complaints, the customer may have various apprehensions. So how you manage those complaints and apprehensions, that comes under customer service management. Okay, next, demand management. What do you mean by demand management? So here we are, what you are doing is you are trying to correlate the demand of customers with the supply chain okay, capacity. What do you do here? You are trying to anticipate the demand. Okay, next quarter you need to supply say 10,000 units of a particular product. So what you do after knowing that demand, you are trying to increase your capacity of your supply chain to deliver 10,000 units. Okay, so you are trying to match the requirement of the customer with the capacity of your supply chain. That is demand management. Then manufacturing flow management. What do you do in manufacturing flow management is you are trying to manage the entire activities within the manufacturing process. Okay, so how the processes are produced, the various processes are undertaken or executed in the factory to produce the products. Okay, so everything comes under this. So this is manufacturing flow, means it's concerned about various activities or processes related with the manufacturing activity. Okay, then product development and commercialization. What do you do in this product development and commercialization? You are focusing on developing new products, or adding new features to the existing products. Okay, then next, return management. Okay, what do you mean by return management? Return management, we are concerned about return of goods after sale. By whom? By the customers. Okay, what all things we have to look in this? You have to look about the logistics. Okay, actually it is known as reverse logistics, because you need to take the goods from the customer's premise and you need to reach the you need this goods should reach your storage facility, right? Okay, so reverse logistics, then gatekeeping, okay, etc. So many activities or process related with the return of the goods. Then last one is order fulfillment. What do you mean by order fulfillment? So in order fulfillment, you are trying to satisfy entire customer requirements. If the customer has ordered for say 1,000 quantities of a particular product with a particular quality, okay, you are trying to fulfill those entire requirements. So it is not just with respect to the numbers of the products given, it is also with respect to the quality, specifications, the manner of delivery, the manner of packaging, various requirements the customer has put forward with respect to the delivery of the goods and sale of the goods have to be managed. That is what is coming under order fulfillment. Okay, so in net effect, supply chain management is a holistic methodology which includes various activities like customer relationship, supplier relationship, then customer service management, demand management, etc., etc., where the entire processes from procurement of the inputs till the delivery of the output product is covered. Okay, that is SCM. Now, next one of important topic is type of SCM. Type of SCM. Basically, there are two types of SCM here. You can write. Okay, pull model or push model. Push model. It is also known as the traditional model of SCM. Next is pull model, or it is the modern model of SCM. Okay, now what do you do in push model and what do you do in pull model? Okay, listen carefully. In push model, the entire SCM activities are managed based on the anticipated demand by the suppliers. Okay, I will explain you what is this push model. Suppose you are having a company known as A Limited. Okay, you are or A Limited is manufacturing a product known as P. Okay, if you are following a push model of SCM, what will you do? Okay, if you are following push model of SCM, what will you do? You need to plan about your SCM. Am I right? Your supply chain. Okay. In order to plan about your supply chain, you need to know the suppliers, the customers, the activities to be done, everything. Am I right? From input to output. Okay. So for that, first thing what you need to do is what? You need to know what is the demand of the product. Okay. Demand of the product. Okay. Now, how do you know the demand of the product? Okay. In push model, what you do is you will anticipate the demand of your product. Okay. For a particular future period. For example, let us say this is month September. Okay. Now, right now, you are going to anticipate the demand for P in October 2020. Okay, how you will anticipate that? You will look your past history. Okay, in the previous years, how many goods have been sold in this particular month. Then you will see the immediate previous months, the history, like how many goods you are able to sell in September, how many goods you are able to sell in July, August, and previous months, and what is the pattern. Okay, based on this information, you will try to anticipate what? Anticipate the demand for your product. Once you anticipate the demand for your product, what you can do? You can give the orders for manufacturing to the suppliers. Am I right? What you will do? If you are a trader, you will give an order to your supplier for delivery of the goods. Or if you are a manufacturing entity, you need to get the inputs. So for which you need to give orders to the suppliers. Okay. So a push model essentially start with suppliers. Is it clear? Suppliers supply inputs in anticipation of demand for the future period. Here what you need to underline is in anticipation of demand in the future period. That is the crux. In a push model system, entire production strategy and SCM strategy is based on anticipated demand or forecasted demand. Okay, so what does the supplier do? Supplier is anticipating the demand, and based on this anticipated demand, supply inputs. Okay, so you A Limited, you got the inputs for which month? For the next month. Okay, let us say the anticipated demand is, let us say, 10,000 quantities, 10,000 units of P. So your suppliers has delivered the inputs required for 10,000 units of P, the production of 10,000 units of P. Now what do you have to do? You need to do the production. So production. Again, production based on what? Based on the anticipated demand. Again, it is based on the anticipated demand. Okay, so suppliers are supplied you the inputs based on anticipated demand. Then you are producing the particular product in anticipation of the demand. Then what you do? You also supply the goods to distributors. Again, how? In anticipation of demand. Okay, why it is push model? In push model, you are anticipating something, and in anticipation of your demand, you are pushing the goods to the economy. That is push. Okay, you are saying, okay, this would be the demand for the next month. You have anticipated, you have forecasted. Then you manufacture, you give the goods to the market. Okay, so what would be the key feature of this particular this one is, here the inventory will be high. Is it clear? Because you are anticipating the demand and you are producing based on your anticipated demand. So the inventory will obviously higher. Is it clear? Okay. So that is an anticipate the push model or traditional model. Okay. We will just read what is given in that particular material. Okay. Push model or traditional model. To start with, suppliers. Suppliers procure the goods based on forecasted demand and supply to manufacture. Okay, this is the starting point. There is an anticipated demand in the market, based on which the suppliers have starts procuring the goods, and it is delivered to the manufacturer. Suppliers give their products to the manufacturer or distributor. That is second step. Suppliers have procured the goods, then it is given to the manufacturer or distributor. Then this manufacturer procure the goods or distributors procure the goods And if it is manufacturing process, then they are manufacturing, or if it is merely trading, then they are selling it. Okay, then what happens next is distributors give their products to the retailers. Distributors, they are pushing the goods to the retailers, everything in anticipation of the demand. Then what does retailers do? Retailers sell the products to the customers. Okay, now the entire stocks are produced on the basis of anticipated demand only. So if there is any fault or any change in the assumptions taken for the demand forecasting, what will happen? It will either result in shortage of the goods, or most of the times it will result in surplus goods or inventory. Is it clear? That is push model. Okay. Now next would be pull model. Okay. Or modern model. What happens in pull model? In pull model, it is the reverse. Okay, in push model, you started with whom? The suppliers, and you ended where? The customer. Okay, now in pull model, you start with the customers. Okay, and you go to whom? Retailers. From retailers, you go to whom? Distributors. Then from distributors, you go to the manufacturer. Okay, then from manufacturers, you go to the suppliers. Why it is reverse? Customers, they place order based on what? Actual demand. Okay, so pull model is a system which produce goods based on the actual demand of the goods. Okay, so if it has to be based on actual demand of the goods, what you have to do? You have to first place order. Who has to place the order? The customer has to place the order. Once the customer has placed the order, then to whom the customer will place the order? The customer will place the order to the retailers. So retailers got the requirement. Okay. Now what does this retailer do? The retailer will pull the order to the distributor. Okay, retailer will inform the distributor. See, we have got an order from this customer, or we have got an order for this much quantity, so please supply. Okay, so the retailers, they replenish their stock based on the demand. Is it clear? Then what does the distributor does? Distributor supply the goods to the retailer and replenish their stock based on the order of the retailer. Okay, manufacturer in turn, what they do? How much order they got from distributor? According to that, produce. How to produce? For production, what they need? They need inputs from the suppliers. So in net effect, they put the order to the suppliers. Is it clear? So in push model, it started with the supplier and ends with the customer. Whereas in pull model, it starts with the customer and ends with the supplier. In push model, entire production or entire manufacturing and entire supply chain falls, or supply chain moves based on the anticipated or forecasted demand. Whereas in full model, the entire SCM, strategic, the supply chain management, works on the basis of actual demand of the customer. It starts with the customer placing order to the retailer, then retailer placing order with the distributor, then distributor placing order with the manufacturer, then manufacturer gives the order to the suppliers, and using that supplies they manufacture the goods and the distributor then goes to the retailer and goes to the customer. So what is the advantage of this pull model? The advantage of pull model is that in pull model there won't be any shortage of the goods, nor there will be any surplus of the goods. Okay, both will be balanced, and the inventories will be minimum. Inventories, even if it is kept, it is just to meet the immediate requirement. Is it clear? That is the push model. Sorry, that is the pull model. Is it clear to everyone? Okay. Now that is the main topic in your the supply chain management. Then you have something called what? Management of the upstream and downstream flows. Okay. Now are you familiar with the upstream and downstream flows? Upstream flow. Upstream flow means it starts with the lower level, then moves up. Okay, whereas in downstream flow, what happens? It is just the reverse. Okay, it moves down to the lower level. Okay, so this is upstream where something moves from down to up, whereas in downstream something moves from up to down. Okay, and in SEM, what is this upstream flow of downstream flow? In SEM, upstream flow is nothing but flow of materials, then capital, then information. Three things: material, capital, information. From where? To the supplier. So lower level indicates the customer, and here upper level denotes the supplier. So flow of material, capital and information from the customer to the supplier. Okay, that is upstream flow. Now here again, top it is supplier, bottom it is customer. So here the difference is the information flows from the supplier to the customer. Okay, supplier to the customer. So again, flow of these three things. How? To the customer. Okay, is it clear? Then the features of upstream flow and downstream flow, that is also given. Okay, then I will just take the table: type of flow, then activities under upstream flow, then downstream flow. We will just see. Meaning, it's the flow relating to the supplier. Means upstream means flow to the supplier. Then this is the flow relating to the customer. Okay, then examples: goods returned, repairs, after sales services, etc., where the information of the goods transfers from the customer to the supplier. Okay, then here downstream: products, parts, components sold. The goods goods is transferred from or flows from the supplier to the customer. It is downstream. This is upstream. Okay, here flow of capital, payments received. Okay, then here invoices, pricing, credit terms, etc. That is also flow of capital. Okay, then flow of information, orders, point of sale date, etc. Here downstream flow, the suppliers inform the customers that this is our capacity, then delivery schedules, etc. Okay, so in strategic supply chain management, you have a flow of material, then you have flow of capital, then you have flow of information. Okay, in upstream flow, everything happens from the supplier, the customers to the suppliers, whereas in downstream, everything happens from the supplier to the customers. Okay, right. Now I've given certain notes on both upstream and downstream, which I think you can read it your own. I'm not spending too much time on that. Okay. Then these are also some theory topics which may be helpful for your theory questions. Okay. Now we are going to the next topic. You can write the heading: service level agreements. This is the last topic. Service level agreements or SLA. Okay. Just 1 minute. Okay, we will see the next small topic: service level agreements. Okay, now what do you mean by service level agreement? Service level agreement is an agreement between whom? Between the service provider and whom? The customer. For what? For providing certain services or provision of services. Okay. A chartered accountant entering into an agreement with a company or a client to provide certain audit services. That is a service level agreement. Okay. So it could be a formal contract. What do you mean by formal contract? Formal contract means it could be put on writing, okay, then executed in stamp paper. Everything will be a formal contract, or it could be informal also. Informal means the client came to you and asked your assistance for doing an audit. You said, okay, we will come. That's all. There is nothing in writing and all. It's also a service level agreement. Only thing is that it is informal. Okay, it could be an oral agreement. Informal means it could be an oral agreement, etc. These are only an examples. Okay, these two are only examples. Okay, so service level agreements are nothing but this is an agreement between a service provider and a customer for providing a particular service. So these are agreements which are generally executed in case of service industries. Okay, now this will include lot of components. What are the major components of the service level agreements? One is, you can write, major components of SLA. Major components of SLA, you will have definition of services, okay, then terms of delivery or terms of provision of services, okay, then you have payment terms, okay, then you have legal compliance terms, okay, then you have cost, warranties, etc. Then towards the last you have termination of services. Lot of components of this service level agreements. What is a service level agreement? It is nothing but any common agreement which a service provider executing with a customer to provide certain services. It will have lot of components starting from definition of services and ending with termination of services. Generally, the definition of services will be the first clause or first component, then it will end with the termination clause. Okay, now what do you mainly this SLA may also include, okay, the rewards for executing the contract, okay, and also penalties for violation of terms, okay. Then most of the SLAs will have a provision to revisit the terms already entered into. Okay, what does it mean? You have decided on certain conditions, certain terms. Okay, after some time, you both the parties want to make some changes. Okay, we call it as amendment to the clauses or amendment to the agreement. Amendment to the agreement or clauses. Okay, so if any amendment is required, there should be a provision of amendment within the service level agreement that is also generally included. Okay, so it can be asked as a short question or short note. I have given a short note in the material also. Okay, then you can write the next heading, gain sharing agreement. What do you mean by gain sharing agreement? Gain sharing agreement is an agreement, you can write, it is an agreement under which the supplier or the contractor, okay, agree to perform its obligations, okay, obligations under the contract, for what? Not for a fixed sum of payments, you can say fixed consideration, not for a fixed sum. Then what is the consideration? The consideration will be but for sharing of gain received by the customer or awarder. Okay, so this is an agreement between a supplier and a customer. in which the supplier agrees to do its part of obligations. Okay, but there will not be any fixed fee for it, or there won't be any fixed consideration. Instead, they will say that whatever gain the customer is getting from this particular contract, that gain will be shared between the supplier and the customer. Okay, it is very common in case of IT company, where two persons come together under an agreement. One person will assist the other persons to develop certain things with an agreement that once the product is ready and it is delivered in the market, whatever revenue or whatever profits that particular product achieves, okay, or earns, that profit will be divided between these two parties in an agreed proportion. Okay, so this is an agreement where the gains are shared between participating entities. Okay, that is why these are known as gain sharing agreements. Is it clear? So gain sharing agreements are agreements executed between a supplier and a customer, where the supplier agrees to perform its part of obligations under the contract, not for a fixed time, but for sharing the gains or profits that is arising from the contract to the customer. Is it clear? Okay, right. So basically it is a sort of risky affair for the customer of the supplier. Because why it is risky? Because there is no guarantee of payment. Okay, payment will be received only if the other party is able to generate gain or profit on this contract. Okay, this is the risk. Now what is the benefit? The benefit is, okay, supplier get a share of profit or gain, okay, of the customer. So if the product or the contract is going to be a big success, okay, a product is launched and the product clicks in the market, what will happen? It will earn a lot of revenue. The profits will be huge. You take the profit. This sort of agreements are there in the film industry also. Okay, a producer and a director, or a producer and actor. Now leading actors, they are coming with a gain sharing agreement. They will come into agreement with the producer, where the actor will agree to act in the program or act in the film without receiving any fixed payment, but on a guarantee that the producer will be paying this particular actor a specified sum of, or specified percentage of the gain received by the producer. Okay, so if the producer makes a profit of 10 crore, out of that a fixed portion will go to the actor. If the customer, the producer ends up in a loss, there is no profit at all on the film. Okay, what will happen to the actor? The actor will not get anything. Is it clear? So that is gain sharing agreement. Okay, so basically it is a win-win situation. Win-win situation to both. Right? Now next we have another small topic known as outsourcing. What do you mean by outsourcing? Outsourcing means outsourcing, or you can call as subcontracting. Outsourcing or subcontracting is nothing but getting things done by others for a fixed or variable consideration. Okay, you are doing a lot of things. Out of that, one particular portion is outsourced to some other person, which means you are asking others to do it on your behalf. Okay, so you may give a fixed sum or a variable sum based on the number of units produced or based on the time put in. Lot of things, which is very common in the present world. Okay, so you can see that also you can take the material. Outsourcing. What do you mean by outsourcing? Outsourcing or contracting. Contracting out involves shifting of task, operations, jobs or process to another party for a span of time so as to reduce the cost or improve the efficiency. Okay, so you are shifting certain tasks or certain operations, a part of your task or operations to another party for a particular time. So what is the advantage? Why you go for this outsourcing? Outsourcing, you are concentrating on outsourcing because you want to improve the efficiency of the major areas where you are focusing. You can't do everything you are on. Okay, you will have to depute certain things to others. Okay, that is being done in outsourcing. Okay, then it could relate to manufacturing entity or service activities. Now, what are the merits and demerits? Merits savings in cost of operations, labor, overheads, etc. Because you are giving it to someone else, so he will take care and he will give you the particular the end product or the outcome what you are expecting. So you don't have to worry about the cost of operations. The other party is met. Then you need not incur any overheads for that. Everything will be met by the other party. Okay. Then reduction in investments in technology, infrastructure, human resources. Okay, then better flexibility in staffing and manpower management, then effective when used in the context of downsizing or re-engineering. Okay, now you might have heard about the KSEB being advised by top consulting firms to outsource many of its major works. Okay, earlier, say some few years earlier, all the activities of KSEB was done by its staff alone, whether it is driving or whether it is delivery of services. Like if you see the line management, if there is any problems with the electricity line, people of KZB has to come and repair it. Okay, and as far as KZB is concerned, it was very costly because they had to have a proper person manage the person for that, and their overheads, their remuneration, then cost of doing a lot of things were there, and it was not done in an efficient manner also. Okay, because KCB had a lot of other activities also, due to which certain things they were not able to concentrate on the efficiency. Okay, so what the consultants advised was, instead of doing these things in their own, they can outsource it. The first thing they outsourced was vehicles. Okay, KZB staffs or the assistant engineers, then executive engineers, they wanted vehicles for traveling. Okay, earlier the KZB had their own vehicles and their own drivers, which used to be very costly from a holistic perspective. So they started outsourcing it. They will hire the vehicle with the driver for a limited period. Okay, then they will use the fixed payment will be given over with that. Only when there is a requirement they need to hire. Okay, and many times it proved, outsourcing proved cost effective also. Your overall cost came down, not in terms of the direct cost. Direct cost may increase a bit, but in terms of overheads, it may have, the entity may have a huge savings. Is it clear? Okay. Now coming to the demerits, quality problem. Yes, that is the basic demerit of an outsourcing. If you don't have proper control of the persons who are executing the things, there may be quality issues. If you are doing certain things on your own, you can ensure 100% quality. Okay, though it is costly, quality can be assured. But when you subcontract to somebody, you can't have a better control than your staff on those outside parties. So naturally there will be quality issues in that. Okay, then reduce the control over operations and deliverables of activity outsource. Yes, same thing. Risk of losing sensitive data and loss of confidentiality. That was the all issue with the Springler. Springler means what? Certain activities was outsourced to a third party, and third party was given in charge of doing certain activities. Okay, so there the risk of losing sensitive information, then confidentiality, all those issues were there. Okay, right. So that is all about the outsourcing. Now moving ahead. There is a question number 2.12. I'm keeping this question pending for the time being, because for explaining that question I need to explain another concept which is there in the next chapter. Okay, so now I'm keeping this particular question on pending, and I will come to this question after I complete certain topics in the next chapter. Clear? Okay, so this will be kept on hold. So with that, I think we have completed chapter 2. Okay, then we will have to move to the chapter 3. I think you all received the class material for chapter 3 today morning by your email. I had sent it. Okay, hope everyone got it, right? Okay. Now before commencing the next chapter, I will take a short break of 5 minutes.